Hey everyone, welcome. Our story unfolds 3 years after a worldwide disaster in which thousands of monstrous beings, dubbed Reapers, burst forth from the earth and attacked humanity. Strangely, these creatures never seem to operate above 8,000 feet, sparing those who managed to escape to high ground. Among the survivors is a young boy named Hunter, who lives in a remote community high in the Rocky Mountains. Today, he secretly ventures below the safety line. Through his binoculars, he watches the unfolding events below as he peers intently at the distant world. While observing the scene, Hunter notices children playing on a neighboring mountaintop. Suddenly, an unfamiliar noise breaks his concentration. Alarmed, he hastens his return to safety. The noise grows louder, a heavy, relentless gallop punctuated by an intense, bone-chilling roar. Just as Hunter reaches the sharply marked 8,000-foot boundary, a Reaper materializes in a blink right behind him. The creature halts as soon as it touches the line, then quickly retreats. Breathless and terrified, the boy clings to his hiding spot, his heart pounding with fear. High above the mountains lies Lost Gulch Refuge, a small settlement of fewer than 200 residents. Here, Hunter's father, Will, becomes increasingly anxious about his son's recent behavior. Later, Hunter confesses that he crossed the safety line, explaining that he wanted to see more people and that most of the monsters had remained inactive. Although Will gently explains that such actions are dangerously reckless, his concern is evident. After this difficult exchange, Will leaves on a hunting trip with his friend Katie. While they haul in a freshly taken deer, Katie inquires about Hunter's actions. Will recounts the incident and reveals that Hunter had even been spying on the nearby village of Red Rock, where children his age live. Katie sympathizes, reminding Will that Hunter is the only child in their community. While she agrees that his safety must be paramount, she also suggests that not everyone has adapted well to the isolation. Still, Will suspects there is more behind his son's defiance. Perhaps Hunter longed to revisit the place where he last glimpsed his mother. Will's thoughts turn to memories of his past. His neighbor Na, a resourceful woman often seen firing her rifle at mysterious targets and engrossed in peculiar experiments with ammunition, comes to mind. Every morning, Will is haunted by recollections of his wife, Tara, who had insisted on accompanying Na on a perilous expedition below the safety line and never returned. Now, in addition to his loss, Will must shoulder the immense responsibility of raising Hunter alone. The challenge is even greater because his son suffers from a severe respiratory illness that requires a specialized device to control his condition. In the days that follow, Will continues to educate Hunter, teaching him crucial survival skills like farming, fishing, and practical problem-solving. On Hunter's birthday, Will goes to great lengths, bartering to obtain the last package of macaroni and cheese, Hunter's absolute favorite dish. The boy is awed by his father's ingenuity, but their celebration soon gives way to another difficult discussion. Hunter wonders aloud why the radio is used so sparingly. Will explains that in winter, when daylight is limited, every drop of electricity is precious. Their situation is made even more urgent by the high energy consumption of Hunter's medical device. Eventually, Hunter nervously asks when his father plans to set out on the next expedition, and with a heavy sigh, Will admits that the filter for the device is running dangerously low and must be replaced soon. Enjoying the story so far? Subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support powers our adventures. Don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss an update. Now, let's dive back into the adventure. Later that day, as dusk settles in, Katie visits Will. Over a quiet conversation, he admits that while he once loathed outings with his wife's family, he now finds himself missing even those challenging moments. That same night, Hunter experiences another severe respiratory crisis. Instead of relying solely on his device, Will administers an injection to ease the attack. With urgency mounting, he decides to search for replacement filters at a hospital in the Boulder area, and he invites Na to accompany him. Na is one of the few who has survived an encounter with the Reapers. She has devoted herself to studying their weaknesses. In fact, A year ago, she had taken Tara on an expedition to an old laboratory, hoping to find a solution. Although that plan ultimately failed, Na now claims she has lost hope. Yet, Will refuses to believe that and reveals he has mapped out a route through old mines cutting across the mountain, a passage through forbidden territory in 2 short segments. Knowing that the hospital lies 600 meters below the safety line, Na reluctantly agrees to join him. Before departing, Will reminds her that she still owes him a favor for what happened with Tara. Before dawn, Will leaves Hunter in the care of a trusted friend and gathers the necessary weaponry for the journey. It isn't long before Katie, determined and resolute, joins him. Like Hunter, she refuses to endure a life confined to these high altitudes. The first step in defeating our enemy is truly understanding it, she asserts. While Katie's practical knowledge of heavy weapons impresses Will, even as she casually mentions that she grew up in Texas, Na continues her experiments, causing delays. In a moment of frustrated banter, Na accuses Katie of being a burden, insinuating that Katie only came along because of an interest in Will. Tempers flare briefly until Will steps in to defuse the situation. The tension subsides as a chorus of whinnies echoes through the forest. It turns out to be just a herd of horses, and the worst of the danger seems to be drawing to a close. Soon the group arrives at Alta Vista, a small ski area featuring a cable car designed to whisk passengers to the top of the mountain. However, the aged battery makes its reliability questionable, especially since the walk to the summit is only 10 minutes. As they deliberate, Nina, ever the cautious one, consults the compass. Deep within the vegetation, a sinister glow can be seen at the tip of what appears to be a reaper's tentacle. Without hesitation, Na dashes toward the cable car while Katie, distrusting its functionality, opts for an alternate route. Both eventually pause when the ominous glow suddenly fades away, leaving a lingering air of suspicion. Meanwhile, Will begins tinkering with a generator, hoping to boost their chances of escape. Just as they forge ahead, Katie suddenly spots a reaper emerging from the darkness. Despite the heavy arsenal at her disposal, the creature's horns and gruesome features reappear amid billowing smoke after every explosion. Frustrated by the creature's resilience, Katie abandons her counterattack and starts to run. At that critical moment, the cable car miraculously comes to life, and Will and Na scramble into an empty cart. Realizing that Katie might not clear the gap in time, she ascends one of the supporting pillars of the structure in a bold bid to catch up. High above, Will fires at the Reaper to try and momentarily stun it. The creature retaliates by violently shaking the cable's support, nearly sending Will tumbling. As Katie musters her courage and leaps, she miscalculates and falls behind the moving cart, but Will grabs her hand just in the nick of time. The entire structure quivers under their combined weight, yet the cable car stubbornly presses forward. Nina reassures them from behind that safety is near. Suddenly, the Reaper strikes the cable again, causing a violent jolt that sends the three plummeting. They crash to the ground mere steps from the safety line and, with hearts racing, sprint frantically to cross it just in time. Meanwhile, the creature halts its pursuit at the boundary. After their dramatic escape, the group finds shelter for the night at a nearby resort hotel. In an ironic twist, Na even arranges for a fancy drink to celebrate another day of survival. Over the clink of glasses, Will takes the opportunity to inquire about Na's research. Evasive at first, Na confesses that the key to understanding the Reapers lies in knowing what happened 3 years ago. She explains that these beings appeared simultaneously around the world and attacked only humans. They showed no interest in any other creatures, and they didn't stop to eat or rest until every person within their reach was eliminated. Haunted by memories, Will recalls a conversation he once had with Tara before her fateful laboratory expedition. He had begged her not to accompany Na, insisting that Na was the type of scientist who pursued success at all costs. Tara, however, had been determined that she could save the world from the Reapers, even going so far as to plan ahead for problems like the dwindling filters needed by Hunter's device. The next day, the travelers arrive at the entrance of an old mine. Will outlines their route, noting that the exit is merely 7 meters from the safety line. However, Na immediately expresses concern, fearing that the mine's tunnel may not remain perfectly level. A variation in altitude could be fatal. Under pressure, Will concedes that a short stretch of the tunnel does indeed dip below the safe line. The revelation sparks anger among the group, particularly because their compass fails to operate inside the mine. Despite the protests, they decide to press onward. Inside the mine, the trio is forced to take a parallel passage that lies almost entirely below 8,000 feet. At the top of a steep staircase leading to the next level, Katie is startled by a bat that swoops right at her. As she catches her breath, she confides that on her last day before the apocalypse, she was brutally beaten by her boyfriend. For the first time, Na shows genuine compassion, though she later regrets shattering the fragile rapport that was beginning to form. Still, she warns urgently that they must descend the staircase immediately. Aware that Reapers detect even the slightest rise in carbon dioxide, the group steels themselves to control their breathing. Their strategy holds until a suspicious sound echoes through the darkness. Will orders Katie and Na to cover their flashlights, plunging the tunnel into near-total blackness. Soon, an eerie glow reveals the tip of a Reaper's tentacle, and panic sets in. In their scramble to escape, they accidentally lose their bearings when an abandoned cart blocks the passage for the enormous creature. Cornered in a cramped corner of the mine, the trio huddles together, holding their breath as every second counts. Slowly, a lone tentacle slithers closer, methodically inspecting their hiding place. On the verge of suffocation, Will distracts it by flinging a flare, granting them a precious moment to catch their breath. In that brief pause, Katie spots a narrow opening in the wall. Seizing the chance, all three rush through the constricted passage. Unfortunately, the new exit offers no safety. Waiting there is a Reaper, looming ominously. In a crushing moment of terror, a tentacle strikes Katie in the chest, impaling her as Will watches in despair. No time remains for mourning. The threat is already upon them again. Will bolts toward the nearest staircase with Na close behind, as the sound of the creature grows louder and more menacing with every step. Eventually, Nina appears at an exit, and the pair burst into the fresh air. Outside, Will is startled to see Na in tears. She makes the sign of the cross, praying fervently for both vengeance and divine help. Not far off, they come across a small, abandoned ranch and decide to take a brief rest. In an ironic twist, the sole available meal is macaroni and cheese. In the temporary calm, they finally open up about their losses, Will recalling Tara and the failed laboratory expedition, and Na explains that the Reaper's scales possess an electric charge that might be exploited as a weapon. However, Will grits his teeth in resentment, bitterly recalling how he lost Tara over what he calls an unrealized theory. The following day, the duo load a truck from the ranch and head toward Boulder. After a dramatic pause before the safety line, Will accelerates full throttle, speeding past wayward horses and gaping craters, the scars left behind by the rampaging Reapers. As they reach Boulder, the town lies eerily silent and the hospital is in ruins. Will frantically searches for the replacement filters, but when he finally locates them, Nina shouts for him to hurry as a Reaper closes in dangerously. Clutching the bag of filters tightly, Will and Nina race for the exit. Inside the hospital corridor, jagged tentacles suddenly burst through the wall, blocking their route and forcing them to reverse course. They scramble up to the second floor, bracing themselves against a wall for support. Suddenly, an enormous tentacle ensnares Will. Finding that shooting isn't working, Na grabs a heavy axe and swings fiercely at the creature's scaly hide. Though her blow leaves no visible mark, it irritates the Reaper enough for it to loosen its grip on Will. Immediately, Nina pulls a lever that fills the hall with thick smoke. Using the confusion to their advantage, the duo dashes into the next room. In the swirling fog, a sinister glow from the creature's tentacles flickers briefly before vanishing, as if the beast is reconsidering its attack. Seconds later, the monster charges in full force. With quick thinking, Will fires at a nearby rope holding several oxygen tanks. The ensuing explosion sends the Reaper hurtling through a window, and both Will and Nina watch in disbelief as the lifeless body of the creature lies in the courtyard. Meanwhile, Na informs Will that her laboratory is nearby, but he is unwilling to risk another perilous journey. After all, he came solely to acquire the filters for Hunter's device, and now they must return as quickly as possible. Na argues that these filters will last only a year at most, meaning they will have to embark on this hazardous adventure again unless she can develop a reliable weapon. Shortly thereafter, Will loses consciousness for a moment, struggling to free himself from his seatbelt and violently kick open the shattered windshield. Even without the aid of his compass, he knows a Reaper is close by. Its signature, haunting roar grows louder as he climbs the remaining distance. From above, he appears almost helpless against the relentless creature. Suddenly, to his mounting horror, he sees a second Reaper positioned between him and the safety line, while a third approaches from the opposite side. Completely surrounded and with his escape hanging by a thread, Will's chances diminish alarmingly. In that critical moment, Na appears from behind the nearest Reaper and fires her specially modified bullets. The targeted creature shatters into dust, and the same fate soon befalls the other two. In disbelief, Will stares at the scattered remnants of what he now realizes are not mere animals, but intricately coordinated machines. With a grim tone, Na remarks that she always suspected the initial attack was orchestrated, and that the strict altitude limit was no accident, but part of their programming. When Will asks who might be behind it all, Na offers no reply. With the immediate threat vanquished, Will and Na make their way back to Lost Gulch. Upon their return, young Hunter greets his father with overwhelming relief and joy. In a celebratory moment, Nina hoists a tattered pirate flag high, spreading the good news to the surrounding communities. It isn't long before the production of miraculous adapted bullets begins in earnest. After a brief, heartfelt tribute to their fallen friend Katie, Will and Na lead a group of volunteers across the line to join the renewed fight against the Reapers. In a matter of days, the enemies start to fall in heaps across the mountain, as hope and resistance begin to flicker back to life. Later that evening, Will and Nina stand beneath the starry sky, watching in awe as bright, mysterious spots approach Earth. Could these celestial beacons hold the key to unraveling the origin of the first Reapers? As music swells softly in the background, the promise of new hope lingers in the cool night air.